Oh, what a mess. This is Neil Schneider from Meant to Be Seen. Welcome back to my messy basement. Today is episode number 10, 1-0. Really proud. I know it may not sound like a big deal, but for us it is. I mean, we've had some tremendous guests on the program, and today is no exception. Also, we've noticed there's been a big increase in press releases being sent our way, updates and news stories about upcoming games and content and technology. This is all great to receive, but really for success for us, or something that's meaningful for us, is to have thought leaders on the big screen. That's what we want to see happen, so that our viewers and our readers could learn and they could see the excitement behind virtual reality and immersive technology. So if you can help us get some top guests and some top thought leaders on the big screen, that's a big deal for us, and we're happy to make those arrangements. So be sure to email neilsmessybasement@mtbs3d.com to make that happen. Now, I mentioned that today is episode number 10, and we have a wonderful guest today, Duncan Burbidge. He is the executive producer at the Third Floor London. For those unfamiliar with the Third Floor, these guys are tops when it comes to pre-visualization for movies. And of course, they're working in virtual reality as well. I don't want to spoil all the surprises because there are plenty. They're very much excited about virtual reality, but they've worked on movies such as The Martian. The Third Floor has pretty much done all the Marvel movies that I know of. They even do Game of Thrones. So their influence is everywhere. We're very proud that, I'm very proud that Duncan Burbidge is visiting us today in my messy basement. So really exciting stuff. Back with more right after this. To my immediate left, nervously drinking his glass of water, is none other than Duncan Burbidge, executive producer at the Third Floor London. Welcome to the program, Duncan.
Thanks, Neil. Good to talk to you, mate.
Well, Duncan, we keep bumping into each other at FMX, so it's a big honor that you're visiting us in our basement. My basement, I should say, because my wife never comes down here. Now, you've got this huge pre-visualization background, not just for yourself personally, but of course as the company. I mean, that's what it does, the Third Floor. Can you tell us a little bit about what pre-visualization is?
Sure. I mean, we have the privilege of working on some really, tentpole feature films. And, previs is, basically animated storyboards. We're using the computer to generate 3D blueprints, if you like, of the film. So helping directors really visualize what their film is going to look like, and use it as a communication tool to all their heads of departments to say, this is what we're shooting for, this is what we're aiming to do. And it's a fantastic liberating experience for them because they don't have to keep describing what it is they're trying to achieve with every department. They can just show them and say, right, have you got questions related to lighting or stunts or grips or all the different key areas that make up a film. So it's a great tool that a lot of directors are falling in love with, and a lot of studios are relying on us to help visualize large portions of current tentpole films.
By the way, move yourself just a little more to your right. Just scoot on over. There you go. There you go. So, amazing stuff. I mean, I've seen some reels that the Third Floor has done, and it literally, if I'm understanding correctly, it literally looks like almost like video game recreations, or should I say pre-creations, of what the movie actually looks like. I mean, what kind of technologies do you use to make that happen?
Most of our stuff's done in Maya. Well, all of it's done in Maya, I should say. We use this sort of Adobe suite as well. We keep things very light. We have tools surrounding both those packages, but the real trick for a previs artist is to work quickly. Very fast iterative designs, turning around feedback, showing directors ideas. And trying to create an environment that doesn't hinder them to be able to just very quickly do that is really what we're about.
Now, just so I understand, I mean, when we're talking about a major film, like or I'll just do some name dropping here, Marvel's Avengers: Age of Ultron, how long is that pre-visualization process?
on those big shows, it can be anywhere between 12 to 18 months. From we sort of get involved very early doing previs all the way through the shoot, and then take it into post-vis as well. So taking materials that the editor's providing to us and knocking out green screens and adding creatures and other bits and pieces, so they can actually screen the film fairly complete, but obviously without temp sort of visuals. So that's on a really big show. Other shows might be just a few months, or we do commercials that are just a few weeks. It's a very wide spectrum of sort of levels of work, if you like.
So if you're talking about, let's say, 12 to 18 months just for the pre-visualization, in your experience, how long does the whole film take to shoot?
It really depends. 6 months, for 6 to 9 months for a really big project. 5 months, I think, is probably close to the average, I guess, something like that. As I said, it really depends. Those big, complicated films take an awful lot of time to do, and they'll have more than one unit shooting and just pumping through a lot of material very quickly, and we're always trying to keep ahead of that curve. So, we're creating sequences in advance of their shooting schedules so that everyone's got something to refer to as they need.
I mean, that's really incredible because, I mean, if you're talking about 12 to 18 months just for the pre-visualization, and then the movie, I mean, I know it sounds like a long time, but relative to that, then the movie shoot is just like 6 months, and that's on the big scale of things.
Yeah, we can quite often be on a project a lot longer than a lot of people, and also what happens a lot these days is the post schedules are getting shorter. So the time to after they wrap shooting, going through their test screenings and edit phase to actually then finishing the final visual effects is very short. It varies from show to show, but it's an interesting, challenging time to be making movies, really. And I guess the other key thing for us is everyone's trying to do something that people haven't seen before, bigger and better than the last film, all those sorts of challenges. And that's really the world we like to live in at Third Floor, of just really coming up with really unique, original ideas and really working with the filmmakers to just create something really fun and exciting.
So, if I may, it sounds like the big success of movie production is the plan. I mean, really, you're all about the planning, and really, that's like 70% of the battle, if I'm hearing correctly.
It is, and also the other challenge is, a lot of directors like happy accidents, so they like to be able to show up on set and an actor suggests something they hadn't thought of, or a cameraman or DP to come up with something really creative and new. So you've got to create that flexibility. Film, there's a great line, I think it was Peter Jackson said, a film is never finished, it just gets released. And I think, you've got to think with that slight mentality that you don't want to pare the creativity down to such a fine point that it's just a carbon copy of something you've done. Sometimes it is, and that's fantastic, and obviously we love working on those films, but I've certainly worked with a fair share of directors that have always sort of wanted to be able to explore the ideas right up to the last minute, and so you want to give them that flexibility.
Well, Duncan, I don't think like a lot of the people who watch this, visit our basement, have a real appreciation of all the hard work you do and all the magic that you make happen. And I always call you Iron Man, so maybe you should tell everybody why I call you Iron Man.
I have no idea, Neil. Every time I see you, no, I think you always ask if I'm Iron Man, but I'm not. Maybe it's because I go to the gym a lot. I don't know.
You're being modest. You're being modest. Tell us about some of the movies you've worked on.
Gosh, what can I mention? Because that's the other challenge, actually, because we get involved super early. Like the last year's worth of work that we've done hasn't been released yet, so I can't even talk about it. So, a lot of the Marvel films, obviously, we feel really privileged to work on a lot of their awesome films. So Age of Ultron we did over here in the UK. We did Mission Impossible 5 over here. We did Maleficent. I'll have to pull up the whole list, Neil.
No. I did pull up the list.
You did? Go on, then.
Come on, you know I cheated. I did pull up the list. And am I right? The Third Floor. I mean, I know you didn't necessarily personally work on all the films, but have you been attached to pretty much all the Marvel films?
I think so, yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, we have a really awesome relationship with Marvel, and as I said, feel like really valuable part of their universe, which is really exciting for us as a company. We've been doing that for quite a few years, and it's a fun challenge. Like on Ultron, there were sequences Joss had really worked out, and the sequences where he just let the team play and come up with shots and gags which are still in the film, which is incredibly rewarding for the team to have such a prestigious director sort of let them have their fun. And I think that's the great challenge, I guess, for us as a company, is always to be sort of cutting edge, always to be surrounded by really good, talented people, and create an atmosphere for people to collaborate and do their best work. That's the fun, that's the joy, I think, of what makes Third Floor unique.
Now, I know you don't like spoilers, so we're not going to encourage any, okay? But am I correct that you work on Game of Thrones as well?
We do. Yeah, we do. We've done, I think this is our third season we've just finished now. I stay out of those meetings as much as I love the work and love the guys doing it. I literally remove myself from any conversations about anything we're doing on the actual show because I love it so much. I don't want to know what we're doing each season ahead. So it's great fun, actually, seeing each episode and then sort of ask the team, did we had a hand in that right last night? And they're like, yeah, that was us for like 6 months. That was so much fun.
I wonder, I mean, Game of Thrones is a regular TV series. It's like it's a weekly series. And then you work in the movie world as well. Is doing pre-visualization for a TV series any more or less a nightmare than the movie business because of the rush schedule?
I think it probably so. There's obviously an accelerated schedule, a lot more throughput. I mean, they're doing, over 10 hours worth of material rather than 2. So that's a big challenge. And also, I think we have to have a slightly different approach to that as well. Not taking things quite to the same level as we'd like or we're used to in the film world, but just there it's much more of a technical challenge, I think, is really, really the key thing. Whereas in the film world, we often get asked to solve a lot of creative challenges. In the TV world, it tends to be we need to limit the scope, or we need to figure out how to do this with the budget we have, or how do we do these really complicated shots and sequences, technically. Okay,
so let's talk a little bit about virtual reality. Have you heard of this?
Your favorite
craze
subject
these days.
What's that? It is, yeah. Thanks to people like you, mate.
But you've, in a way, you've been working in VR before VR was, when I say modern VR, it was a real thing, because if memory serves, you worked on 2 Matrix movies, yes?
Yeah, we did, yeah. So we were really exploring that virtual space very early on.
So tell us, what's your interest in VR? Why is it important to you?
I think for me, it's a new medium. I think someone said, I saw at a conference once, said, how often are we as artists, and producers and so forth, given the opportunity to explore a new medium, and not only just explore it, but by given a preview of it by all the dev kits and other things. It's like if somebody had given us a TV and a camera before TV was in people's homes to be able to really explore what it meant to make television. That's unique. I think that's what's incredibly exciting. And I think for me personally, what's the language? What's the syntax by which we tell stories in VR? I think that's the bit that's got me incredibly excited. Is it's not a film, it's not a game, it's not a book. It kind of blends a couple of those things, but it's going to be something completely unique. And everyone's experimenting, everyone's trying new things, and I think it's going to be some kid in their bedroom that comes up with something that no one's ever thought of or no one's ever seen before. That's really going to excite everybody, and I think that's amazing, right? That's got to be something worth embracing. And I guess we're all a little unsure how well it will be publicly received. How well is it going to be adopted, and how quickly, and all those things. Obviously, people like Sony and Oculus and Facebook have an awful lot of money riding on the success of it. But I think it's more than that, isn't it? It's more about making good content. I've spoke to quite a few people whose first VR experiences haven't been great. They've put the goggles on and come off and felt sick, and it's deterred them from looking at anything else. And the thing is, as a developer, as someone who really wants to see this excel, that's really awful. You want them to have a really great experience. You want to have them do and see something they've never seen before and want more. And I think that's where we're coming from, I think, at Third Floor, is to say, let's do this properly, guys. Let's do the work, good quality, high quality experiences that people are going to remember and go, wow, you should check this out. This moved me. This was something I hadn't seen before. So
from the Third Floor's point of view, I mean, you've specialized in pre-visualization for cinema, for TV. Is virtual reality a pre-visualization tool for you as well, or is it a completely different angle?
No, I think it is, and that's how I guess our interest started, was just looking at the game engines and VR and all those sort of new technologies and thinking about, is it going to have an impact on previs and how and why, and understanding it. And I think what I can see happening is this convergence that people have been talking about for a while, haven't they, where the technology is just accelerating at such a rate that, suddenly the real-time tools are offering you a massive scope of choice and ability and quality of work that is really exciting. And so you kind of want to embrace that. You don't want to be afraid of that. You want to embrace that and say, yeah, okay, we want this to be part of our tool set. We want this to be part of our way of working, if that's what our clients ask for. And VR is just a natural extension to that. And we've been playing around with VR as a visualization tool and how it can be utilized in that space for the directors and everybody to look at scouting locations or viewing materials they haven't seen in a particular way. There's a huge gamut of opportunity there that we're really keen to explore.
When I think of pre-visualization, I think that, you're working in a studio, you've got like a labyrinth of computers, to get things processed and looking quite right, and all the artists are working. I don't know if that's the correct vision. You tell me if I'm way off, or does that sound about right to you?
Well, everyone...
Like a team of people hard at work at computers trying to build the vision of the movie before it's created.
Yeah, at the end of the day, right, it all comes down to people sitting on a box in front of a monitor. But I think the other side of it to us is, as I mentioned, it's about collaboration. So nothing makes me happier, actually, when I go outside and catch up with the team or just walk around to get a coffee and you see the team huddled together looking at someone's monitor and talking about a shot, talking about a sequence, and just everyone exchanging and bouncing. There's a real fluidity and social side of it, I think, that's really important as well, is that, everyone's idea is valid. And everyone from the senior to the most junior member of the team may have a suggestion that's just going to change it and make it even better. So I think that's what's really exciting about our environment.
Well, if you were working in pre-visualization with virtual reality, where you could not just show the experience, but perhaps even walk around the experience, is it helpful from the director's point of view or the film crew to know about set design or give them additional information they otherwise wouldn't have had?
I think it's kind of an optional extra. It's really, I think the key thing for us is it's however the director and the creatives and the producers and everybody want to work. That's what's most important to us is, what kind of tools are they most comfortable with? It's like a virtual camera is, it's something liberating when you give a director a virtual camera and say, you can shoot your movie. If you're used to using a camera, here's a way of interacting with our virtual scenes that hopefully you're more familiar with or more comfortable with. And that works for some and doesn't work for others. So, I like the idea that we've just got a bunch of tools we've got like a candy shop of options, if you like. And allow everyone just to work in a way they're most happy to do, So VR is just one of those, I think.
Now, one of the, I'll call it a flagship product or commodity, I'd say, is The Martian. I've seen the Third Floor speaking about The Martian film and to an extent the VR experience. Can you talk a little bit about the Third Floor's involvement with The Martian? Why has this film been so special to the company?
I think, well, to begin with, we were asked, our head of virtual production, Casey, was asked to go down to Hungary to be on set and was asked to sort of solve some very technical, challenging shoot options and things that they had to deal with down there. So he was looking at ways to drive, cameras and stunt trusses with wiring and all that sorts of things. All of it's online, actually. If anyone's watching this and is interested, they should definitely Google it and have a look at some of Casey's work. But there was the challenge of just trying to figure out, here was something that Ridley Scott wanted to achieve. How do you do that physically? And he's an expert at breaking that down and presenting it in a way that camera people and stunt people and people on the set can really understand and achieve. So that was our first introduction, was solving some of those challenges with the space sequences. My team here in London, we did some post-viz for the film as well. And then, the LA VR team worked very closely with Fox on the VR experience, which is due out later this year. So hopefully after that we can talk about it a bit more.
We will. We will.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, going back to your earlier history, I mean, I mentioned that you worked on 2 Matrix films. You got The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions. And, it's a regular reference. I mean, the Matrix series in general to modern virtual reality. Is this the direction that we're headed? Though it seems the market seems really happy to go in that direction. Whereas in the Matrix movies, it's all like the bad guys trying to get out.
I think more, Ready Player One is probably a more modern reference. I think anyone who hasn't read that book should, I guess the film will be out in the not too distant future as well. But that was a stark warning for me, and that's what actually it's fascinating reading that book and then subsequently then getting really excited about VR, but obviously going in with your eyes open to know, hey, there's some real risks here. What happens if we create a space and a world that people are happier living in than our own? And that's not a very good future to aim towards, is it? I think we all need to be wise to the risks and the early warning signs that things aren't going the way they should. And I think there's quite a few people being quite vocal about that, which I think is a really good thing. I'm sure people did the same when cinema came along. Let's discuss all the pros and cons. Let's be educated and advised and make sure we're all taking care of one another. If you don't see your neighbor for 3 weeks, is it because they've been sitting there with a VR headset on and not eating? We're not there yet, but people do that. I mean, gosh, you read enough stories of teenagers just playing 72-hour marathons on computer games and some dying, and it's awful. That's not a world we want to live in, right? So yeah, I think it's good to be mindful of those things, and cinema's great for that, I think.
But there is a glass half full to that analogy, which is people enjoy the content, people enjoy the experience, people people get something out of it. If we go in that direction, the key is responsibility or well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's us. We all need to be honest about what that is, don't we? We need to go eyes wide open. I think is what's really important. And I think that's the big thing whenever I talk to people and present stuff about VR is this process of education, just even within the experiences themselves. Not having people tripping over wires or cables and not throwing up because they're being spun around or the camera's moving too fast or whatever the things are. Let's be responsible developers. And people will someone's going to have a heart attack, right? People will play a VR horror game and scare themselves silly. So these things are going to happen. Well, we know they happen. So let's make sure we're going in with that understanding.
Now, we don't have to reveal any private information, but earlier in the conversation, actually just now, we talked about the concern about, VR making people ill or not having the reaction that we'd like. Now, I know you've got internal stuff in development. Have you had that reaction to any of your stuff? Do you think you've found internally at least a formula that people are comfortable with the VR experience?
I wouldn't say it's a formula. I mean, there's two answers to that. One, yes, we've been, not completely. I think anyone who tells you they're an expert at VR is lying. But I certainly think we've experienced enough stuff to sort of go, this works and this really doesn't work, and understanding the reasons why, I think, is really important as well. So that, and every time we see another experience that somebody else has created, we're really critical of that or looking for that and go, wow, that worked in a way that ours didn't. So what have they done? And we're always overanalyzing these things. Another side of it is how much are people going to adapt? And I think that's a bit of an unknown factor. I've certainly, been with people who've experienced VR, felt nauseous or felt very dizzy after their first experience, but then after the 9th or 10th, suddenly they're okay with it. So there's those two sides of the coin. But I think there are definitely some golden rules of don't do this because you really will. I mean, there was a presentation, wasn't there, at FMX? I forgot the guy's name. It was an incredible presentation. And he said, they basically know that if you rotate the camera, like this, I can't see my hand, 90 degrees in 10 seconds or whatever the number was, people will vomit. 100% of people will actually throw up. There's the human eye, the human body, brain cannot take that. So I think there's a sensitivity there that varies person to person, but I think you need to understand that. I think if you're going to be a genuinely caring developer and you want people to have good, meaningful experiences, you need to understand that. You need to test it on a whole range of people to make sure that you are being responsible.
And if I could add, I think it's it's important to acknowledge, I don't think there's such a thing as perfection, especially in the smart, because, people get car sick. Yeah. I mean, cars have been around forever. Yeah. They're practical. But, no matter what happens in the world, there's always going to be a percentage of people that are car sick. So... Yeah, and
we've had it where, like, if you... we were trying a lot of different things. So we had a whole thing where you could... you were basically able, free to move around in VR with a controller or whatever other device, and that just didn't work. Especially if there's a hand controller, like an Xbox controller, because you could be looking one way and you would naturally want to turn and move in that direction, but suddenly you were misorientated and you weren't, your body just wasn't behaving in a way you wanted it to or expected it to, and that's when you have a problem. But then we found a way around that. We sort of come up with another device for moving around in that space that works great. So I think that's...
So go ahead, finish your thought.
Go on. No, go.
So let me finish this off by asking you a really pointed, on-the-spot question. I mean, you're obviously very passionate about this, not just professionally, but personally. 3 to 5 years from now, if you were to have a bird's eye view of where VR sits in the world, what would your vision be? What would the ideal vision be for Duncan Burbidge of where VR would be? From an adoption point of view, what part would it play in our daily lives?
I'd love it if it was in that same sort of area. It's just a new medium, I should say, where, of an evening you want to play a computer game or jump on the Xbox or pick up a book, but suddenly you've got this optional other device that you could use, and you could freely get really good experiences and emotionally engaging experiences, and do it in a way that you wouldn't otherwise get from a game, from a film, or from a book. And I think VR is really unique like that. And I think that's the really exciting area for it. If suddenly, the story has a way of drawing you in a way that no other medium can, then I think we've really knocked something, we've really hit the bullseye. We've found something very unique. Yeah, but then that takes time. Cinema took a long time to figure out that you could, move the camera, that you could cut things in a way that told a story in a different way sequentially. Like all these languages and syntax that was developed over time, that's still going to apply to VR. I think we're cheating ourselves if we think we're just going to be able to steal from film and from games to tell a story in VR. I think we're going to have to really get clever and get creative and find a way to do it completely differently. And I think that's what's going to excite me, is to put the headset on in 10 years' time, or maybe it's not a headset, maybe AR has taken over and it's an AR device, and I can experience in something I wouldn't experience any other way. That would be my dream.
Well, Duncan, always an honor. Thanks for visiting us in the basement.
Good to see you, Neil.
You're very welcome. This is Neil Schneider for MTVS. Back with more right after this. Thank you for visiting me in my messy basement. Now, I know we, on a weekly basis, we're very proud. We welcome top guests on the show. But you know what? Everyone's input is valuable here. I mean, there's all kinds of amazing independent projects on the go. Of course, people have different opinions that they're very passionate about. They have a place here. So send me an email, neilsmessybasement@mtbs3d.com. Love to hear from you. And we'll see. Maybe you've got a spot waiting for you on the show. So that's it for this week. We will, of course, be back with more next week. Thank you for watching. This is Neil Schneider from Meant to Be Seen.